the one, the only, Ben Sion. Good morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube Just Daf. Today we're doing Nazir Daf Mem Hey, number 45, a great share for you today. And Iyod Ben Sion will talk about this interesting halacha when the Nazir concludes his period of Nazirus. He brings korbanos. He also has to cut his hair and throw the hair underneath the korban, the burning korban that's cooking the meat of the korban. We'll explain why that is, even though I heard from various rabbanim of mine, actually one rabbi, he said, in Judaism and in Gemara we don't ask what. Sorry, Gemara we only ask what. We don't ask why. We don't ask why. We just ask what. When it comes to lamdas, we just ask what. But if you want to truly understand the sod of the Torah, so then you got to ask why also. And today I'll give you a little understanding of what's behind the Torah's reasoning for a seemingly very interesting and strange halacha. We'll start from Mem Dal and Beis we left off yesterday, about halfway through the daf. Amar Abaye, about 10 lines to the bottom. Amar Abaye, I found the friends of Nasan Bar Shaya, the Astam V'Kamra, and they were sitting and saying, this is talking about a zav. Someone who sees 2 emissions or 3 emissions or 1 emission. Here we're talking about, we'll see 3 emissions. He sees 3 emissions on 3 consecutive days. Seminal emissions. And he comes to the Oel Moed and he gives it to the Kohen. He's going to bring his korbanos. So the Gemara notes, when does he come? Only on the 7th day of his purification. He went to the mikvah, and now it's Shkias Achama. The sun sets in Lo Tavo Asa Herav Shemesh Lo. Right, he's talking at the end of his purification process. He has to do Herav Shemesh. Alma Kasavar Tzul Yom Shel Zav Kazav Dami. Right, the fact that it says, right, he comes with Shel Pesach Ol Moed. He comes at a time when he can come to the Ol Moed. So he has to have not only went to the mikvah, but also have Shkias Achama. So you see from this that even the fact that he went to the mikvah is a full yom, but as Dai had a hair of Shemesh, Shkias Achama hasn't happened yet. It's not good enough. Amin al Huns, I said to them, El Ata Gabi Nazir Tami Nami Dichsiv Eviosam El Kohen Al Pesach Al Moed. When he brings his concluding korbanos, Al Moed is really right to the entrance to the Azara, right? Before you get to the Azara, that's the Machane Leviyah. Harabai is the Machane Leviyah. Once you enter the Azara, that's already Machane Shechina. When does he come? Right? So it must be, right, if we're going to learn what you're saying, that the pasuk means that when you come with Nei Hashem B'Tach HaMoed, it means you not only went to the mikvah, but also get hair of Shemesh. So by a Nazir also it says this, Al Pesach Al Moed. It comes Al Pesach Al Moed, right? You assume you only come to Pesach Al Moed, right, to the Azara, the entrance of the Azara, when you're fit to come. So it must be by a Nazir also. He did Tvila, right? At the end of his Naziros, he does Tvila and does hair of Shemesh. So is this really possible? Top of him of Michti Shari Nikanor Hecha Kaiminan, Shari Levia. Right? Shari Nikanor is basically the entrance way to the Azara. Shari Nikanor is the entrance that divides the Machane Leviyah and the Machane Shechina. Hecha Kaiminan, B'Shari Levia. Where is he standing? In the Shari Levia. Vatanya, the Bride says, Tami Meis Mutar Likanis Machane Leviyah. Even if you touch the corpse, you're allowed to come into the Machane Leviyah. V'lo Tami Meis Belvat. Not only if you're Tami Meis, right? Elafilu Meis Atzmo. Even the dead person can come Machane Leviyah. Now, Yikach Moshe Atzmos Yosef Imo. It says Moshe took the bones of Yosef with him when he left Mitzrayim. Ma Imo. What does it mean, Imo? Extra word Imo. Imo Mochisaso. Imo Menachem Leviyah. Moshe was a Levi. He took it where he resided, the Machane Leviyah in the Midbar. So you see even a dead person, Tami Meis, and Nazir the time base, right? A Nazir touched a corpse tumah. This pasuk is talking about a Nazir who became Tame, not a Nazir. I said before, he concluded his ritual. No, we're talking about a Nazir who's Tame. He's Tame and he brings 3 korbanos, an Asham, a Chadas, and all the birds that are Chadas, and all a korban Asham, which is an animal. So it says he brings those. He has to have 7 days of purification process. But if you're Tami Meis, supposed to a Zav, right? We see that's not true. You can't even go to the Machane Leviyah. Why are you saying that a Zav can't go to the Machane Leviyah unless he had hair of Shemesh? Ela tvul yom shel zav kizav dami. So the Gemara concludes, yes, it's true. A tvul yom of a zav. He just went to the mikveh, but not a Erev Shemesh. He's like a zav. I feel like give him the mechuzar kapara lo ayil. Before we weren't decided. We assumed we were talking about a zav who saw shtei riyos, 3 emissions, or 2 emissions, or 3 emissions, right? The one difference in 2 emissions and 3 emissions, the Gemara Megillah says, is if he sees 2 emissions, he has to purify himself 7 days. He doesn't have to bring a korban. 3 times, his zav gedolah, he has to bring a korban. So since he's mechusar kapara, he's missing 2 steps. He only went to the mikvah. He hasn't had shkias acham, and the next day he has to bring korban. So he's missing 2 steps. So therefore, he can't go unless he does Erev Shemesh. He can't go in to the Machne Leviyah, right? As opposed to a Nazir who just has to purify himself, right? If this whole discussion is talking all moed really means the Machne Shechina, where the Azara and the Heichal are, why does it call it all moed? The reason it says this by Azav is to tell you, just like you can't go. Obviously, anyone who's Tameh, if you're Tameh Mace also, you can't go to the Machne Shechina. So you can't go there. So too, L'Machne Leviyah, that's why the extra time it goes out of all moed, even though it's not necessary. He also, Machusar Kapara Lo Ayel, V'hasami Nalan. Where do you know that's true? The Sanya, Tameh Yeh, L'Rabos Tvul Yom. The Pasuk says, this is a pasuk by a Tamei Mace. He's Tamei Yeh as an extra word. So Rabos Tvul Yom. Even if you went to the mikvah, you didn't have Shemesh. Tu Masabo Rabos Mechusar Kapara. Even if you did go to the mikvah and you had Erev Shemesh, still if you have to bring a korban, you're not allowed to go into the Machne Leviyah, and therefore, this is fundamentally different than a Nazir who's Tamei, even though he also brings korbanos in a sense, but he's not Mechusar Kapara. Those korbanos are not really a kapara for him. That's just so that he could go on with his naziros. The asham and chatas and all are not kapara, as opposed to a zav gadol, he's mechusar kapara. So therefore, since he's mechusar kapara, so therefore, while he's a tful yom, while he's not a Erev Shemesh, he's not allowed to go even into the Machne Leviyah. That's the unique halach over. Even in the Machne Leviyah, obviously, if you're tamei any type of tumah, you can't go to the Machne Shechina. The chiddush here is that even for a zav, once he has Erev Shemesh, he went to the mikvah Erev Shemesh, he's only 1 step away, he could go into the Machne Leviyah. But if he has not had, this is the name of this Gemara, that if he has not had Erev Shemesh, he went to the mikvah, but the shkatzon did not set, he cannot go into the Machne Leviyah, as opposed to a Nazir who could, because he's only missing 1 step, he only has to wait for shkas achama, because his karbanos are not coming for kapara, his karbanos are coming just to end the tuma and to go on. Mishnah says, Tagalachas atara, ketzad. Now, in both cases, when he's tamei and when he finishes the Nirus B'Tara, he shaves his hair. So Tagalachas atara ketzad. How does he do it? What does he do when another finishes his term in Naziros? He completed it B'Tara with purity. Ketzad yamavi gimel behemos. He brings 3. We learned many times. He brings 3 animals. Chadas olav shlamim. V'shochet et shlamim. He shechs shlamim galech aleh. Right? After he shechs the shlamim, then he shaves his head. And we're going to see he puts it underneath the fire to burn while he's cooking the meat of the shlamim. So he says no. He first brought the chatas, and then he shaved his head and cooked the chatas with his hair underneath. Chatas always comes first. Usually the first korban brought. So here also it's the first korban brought, and therefore they both agree. Whatever the first korban is, that's where you shave your head. After that, you shave your head and put the hair underneath the fire of the cooking meat. According to everybody, no matter which one he did first, shlamim chatas or the ola, if he after he shechted the animal and then he shaved his head after the first one, it's your yote b'di'ever. He brought 3 animals. He didn't specify which is for which. Haruya lechatas tigaru chatas lo tigaru l'shlam tigaru shlam. He just specified 3 animals. Now the reason that you can use, which one is for chatas and l'shlam is because they're different animals. The chatas comes from a she goat, a she lamb. I'm sorry, not a she lamb, a lamb. Which is basically the first year of sheep, the lamb, which is female. The ola comes from a lamb, which is male, first year. And the shlamim comes from a ram, which is basically a sheep, which is 2 years old, a male 2-year-old sheep. The Gemara says, Tanarabban v'gilech hanazir pesach al moed. The pasuk says the nazir shaves his head, pesach al moed, the entranceway to the al moed. Al moed is the heichal, is right? Where the Kodesh is. The pasuk is not talking about specifically where he shaved his head. It's talking about something else. It's teaching you that after he brings the korban shlam, then he shaves his head, like the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah. Shneimar shachtu pesach ol moed. This is a different pasuk by korban shlamim. It says by korban shlamim, shechted pesach ol moed. So therefore, the words ol moed doesn't teach you that where you're shechting the korban of the nazir. It just tells you that it's the korban shlam which comes first. Adam shlam makasum medaber. El pesach ol moed. Maybe it really means to tell you the location where you shechted. Amar imkain derech bizayonu. It's bizayon because right after he shechts the shlam, he shaves his head right there. To do it right at the entrance to the heichal, especially during the day where the entrance to the heichal is open, it's embarrassing. It's a bizayon. It's disgraceful to the heichal. Rabbi Yoshua Omeinu Zarech, you don't need it from here. Amar Torah lo salam malos amizbechi kavachomer derech bizayon. You don't have to use it logically. We can actually infer from the pasuk, right? Even by the mizbeach, which is right outside the heichal. Right, you shouldn't use a staircase. It's embarrassing to use a staircase. You go up a ramp. It tells you need a ramp. So certainly, that's not even embarrassing. It's so embarrassing, right? The reason you don't use steps is because you take a step, up. So the underneath of your, whatever the robe that you're wearing becomes, you can see underneath it a little bit if you have a camera over there. So that's a little embarrassing. Certainly, this is more embarrassing. Now we have some. A medrash in Parshas Naso that's in the brackets over here. Most mafarshim, including the Gra, take it out, so I'm not going to read it. Rabbi Yosef Omer, you don't have to learn from here. Pasuk says he takes the hair that he shaves and he puts it on the fire. Right? It says simply he takes it and he puts it. Right? Right? We learn elsewhere that the place where he shechs the korban for the Naziros is in the southeastern part of the Azara of the courtyard, not next to, right, the Heichal was in the western part. So it just says V'lachach v'nas, and you do it right away. If it really meant that he did it mamish Pesach al Moed, right in front of the al Moed, he actually had to bring the hair over there, and that doesn't say in the pasuk. Ikad Amri, a different version of Rabbi Yitzchak. The pasuk is talking about shaving your head after you bring the shlam. I don't remember shlam because Pesach al mamish. Maybe it really means location. Talmud Lomar Relach Rosh in Israel. Makom Shama Vashal Shama Yamagaleach. It says immediately, right? He brings the korban and then he takes Sar Rosh in Israel right afterwards, right? So it must be a place where he shechs the animal and cooks the animal. That's where he would shave. Abba Chanan Omer Mishum Lezer Avagilach Hanazir Pesach al Moed. He learned something else. He shaves in front of the Ol Moed. Calls man shem Pesach Ol Moed Pasuach and Magalea. Not that its location has to be right in front of the Ol Moed. Just you can only do it during the day when the doors at the Heichal are open. Rashir Shenzuri Omer V'gilach Hanazir Pesach Ol Moed. V'lo Nazir. He learns a different thing from this pasuk. Nazir. We know that a female could also be a Nazir, but it says Nazir in the masculine. A Nazira, she does not shave her head. According to the Rosh, she doesn't shave her head at all. Right? Even though a man would shave her head, a woman doesn't shave her head. Shema, what's the reason? Shema, top of Mehem and base, they're going to see her uncover her hair. And they're going to be aroused. They're going to be excited by her. The young Kohanim. If you're worried about that, even by a sota, right? You take her and you uncover her hair and you uncurl her hair in front of the Kohanim. We're not worried over there. Hashem wasn't worried that they're going to be excited about her. Amar Lahen, Zuko Chelos Pokes, Zoin Chelos Pokes, a sota, right? She doesn't put on makeup, she doesn't put on eyeshadow and different cosmetics. This one does, and therefore they're going to be excited, and therefore she wouldn't actually uncover her and shave her head. A woman doesn't shave her head according to the Rosh. According to Tosos, she does. She would just do it in her private place. The Mishnah says, Hayanotel Sar Rosh in Israel. He would take the hair of his head. He would throw it underneath the fire that's cooking, the pot of shlam and meat. If he shaved his head outside Yerushalayim, in the Medina's Eretz Israel, outside Yerushalayim, right? Shlamim is kadshim, kalim. It has to be eaten in Yerushalayim. So the meat has to be shechted and processed and cooked in Yerushalayim, but he doesn't have to technically shave in Yerushalayim. So if he shaved in Yerushalayim, he wouldn't put the hair underneath the fire. Medvar amurim, but tilachas tara. That's only he's shaving his head after completing the Nazirus B'tara in purity. According to the Rabbanan, if he is ending the process of Tuma, where he became Tameh, and he also shaved his head, he wouldn't throw underneath the Dud. Mary says, even by Tuma, you throw underneath the fire. The only case that's not true is someone who's Tameh, and he brings his karbanos, and he cooks his karbanos. Obviously, he has to cook it in the Beis HaMikdash, in the Beis HaMikdash. However, if he shaves his head in the Medina, he doesn't bring his hair to the Beis HaMikdash to cook underneath the food. Sounds from Ray Meir that if he's a tor, even if he shaves his head elsewhere, he would bring his hair to where the meat is cooking. The Gemara says, "Notel sa rosho nizro, Tana Rabbanan." Mishnah says he takes the hair of his head. The Bryce says, "Tana Rabbanan v'achach notel as harosev and noten al sar rosh nizro mishalech ta'as hadush al shlamim." Not only does he take his hair, he actually has to take from a little bit of the gravy from the meat that's cooking, the shlamim meat, and dip his hair in that and throw the hair with the gravy on the fire. The Bryce includes if he does it underneath the pot of cooking meat of the chatas and asham, which are eaten by the kohanim, he's yotzei, not by him. Asham nazir Torah miika. We're talking about nazir Torah. What are you talking about? There's no asham by nazir Torah. Amar Rav Gemara nazir tamei mishaleach tachas adud shel asham yatza. If he's in nazir tamei and he throws the food, the hair, underneath the fire of the cooking asham, he's yotzei. That's really the only carbon that he brings as a nazir tamei. It's an animal. Menani mili. How do you know this? Amar Rava, Amar Kra, Asher Taka Zevach Hashlamim. How do you know you take the gravy with the hair? So this is what the Gemara is darshaning. Asher Taka Zevach Hashlamim. Mizivcho ye tachtav. Asher Taka Zevach Hashlamim. The word Zevach is extra. We know Shlam is a korban. Zevach means a korban. Therefore, the extra word Mizivcho ye tachtav. Not only the hair, but also part of the Zevach. What a part of the Zevach? The gravy. Imshilach Takas Adud Shal Chatas Yatsa. If he threw his hair under the cooking meat of the chatas, is yos in my time. Amakra zevach l'rabos chatas v'asham. The chatas and asham also were included if you throw under the chatas, even though according to Rabbi Yehuda's accepted opinion, the first korban brings is a shlamim, and you throw your hair under the shlamim. If you do it under the chatas, you'd be yotze. Or the asham in the case of Nazir Tameh. V'hafikte amakra zevach l'rabos chatas v'asham. The word zevach, which is extra, used for the chatas and asham. Where I asked immediately about how fiktel high zevach merotev. That we already used to teach me that you also put the gravy. How could you use it for two things? If the Torah just wanted to tell you that you include the gravy, it would have said the word rotev. My zevach, whether it's zevach, rabos chatas v'asham. Therefore, zevach is a different korban. Tell you chatas v'asham is also okay. Maybe the word zevach is only teaching me chatas v'asham, not teaching me that you need the gravy. Who does? V'zevach. If that were the case, it would have said shlamim and v'zevach, a different korban, to include a chatas and asha. My zevach hashlamim. Why the word zevach hashlamim? The zevach of the shlamim. Shlamim not tarte. But zevach also could be a different korban, also part of the shlamim, the gravy. Tanu Rabbana hakol you mashach and tachas ziru chutz mitami shigilech medina. Ibnei Shasaro nikbar divrei Meir. Right, we quoted Rei Meir in the Mishnah. He always says whether you're nazir Torah or nazir tamei, you throw the hair underneath the fire. Except if you shave your head outside of Yerushalayim, then you bury it. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Tahorim Kan V'Kana Yimashachin. If you're a Nazir Tahor, you would throw your hair underneath, whether you were doing it in Yerushalayim or outside Yerushalayim. Tmeim Kan V'Kana Lo Yimashachin. By Atami, there's no concept of throwing the hair underneath the fire. This is a new opinion. We haven't had this, but we had an opinion of Rei Meir in the Mishnah. We didn't have an opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. V'Cham is the opinion, the second opinion of the Mishnah, the first opinion of the Mishnah. No one would throw on the fire. The only person, right, is a tor in the mikdash. Mikdash, the Mefarshim say, not lavdav God in the Beis HaMikdash itself, but even in Yerushalayim, because Yerushalayim you can bring a common shlamim. Neshazasek mitzvah. So that's the way it's supposed to be done. In that case, only in that case, you throw the hair underneath the fire of cooking shlamim meat, along with the gravy also. But if you're outside of Yerushalayim, then you do not bring the hair, because you have to bring the hair to Yerushalayim, and that's not included in the pasuk. That's the conclusion of today's share. Stay tuned for Ian with Ben Sion, where I talk about what is the rationale behind throwing your hair underneath the fire of the Shlomim, Ian of Ben Sion, coming up next.